I always wondered what my parents did to fight boredom before the internet. I asked my 18 brothers and sisters, and they don't know either. All right, 2 deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. However you feel safe, eyes opened or closed. All right. Compromise is as much part of any relationship as anything else. It's just like making coffee or falling asleep while watching Netflix or whatever it is that you watch. One person says one thing and the other person says another. Ideally, you try to meet in the middle. Compromise is rarely fun, but it's necessary and important. I say all the time, compromise and negotiation is something we're all going to do until we're 6 feet under. I don't care if it's with our partners, our bosses, our neighbors. And sometimes we compromise and negotiate with ourselves. It's like, should I do this? I don't know. Well, if I do this, maybe I'll do this. Well, hold on. Maybe I won't do it. I won't spend this as much, but I'll do this. It's a part of life. Here's the thing. We can talk about sharing, but deep down inside, we like what we want. We accept that we don't. We accept that we don't and know that sometimes we split it up fairly. And sometimes that method works. Sometimes we get more than we thought, and sometimes we get less. All are okay because we do see that there's a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is when you compromise, both people walking away feeling satisfied. If anybody walks away feeling like they got the crappy end of the deal, either A, they need to work on some issues themselves, or B, they need to retable that, renegotiate, recompromise. But then there's the time when it's not okay, when we feel that we're getting the short end, which I kind of just covered that. Not just once, but seemingly every time. And we wonder if the things that we asked are skewed or unfair. We wonder if we're giving in too much. We wonder how to know when we're compromising too much. And the simple answer is, if you think you're over accommodating, then you probably are. I was just talking with somebody the other day, and I was telling them there's a difference between being nice and being kind. We should always show each other kindness, there's no doubt. But nice sometimes has an implication that no matter what the other person says or does, I'm going to remain one way. And and that doesn't mean that you change who you are depending on who you're talking to or the circumstance. It just means that being nice is more accommodating you, when being kind is accommodating me. So we should always be kind. I mean, we should always be nice too, but kindness is more favorable because that's you empowering yourself. But it's really not that simple, since what's involved in the dynamic between you and your spouse or whomever you're compromising or negotiating with, your respective histories and your own self-worth. The fun stuff that everyone loves to examine and revisit. But it needs to be revisited because while an answer of whatever you want sounds generous, you're pushing down what matters to you. So many times, and this can go to like passive aggression or what have you. So many times I'm coaching couples and they have resentment towards each other, and it'll come out that well, he's always saying whatever you want, so then I do whatever I want, and then the whole time we're doing whatever I want, he's huffing and puffing and this and that, or vice versa. She always tells me whatever I want, and then when I decide on the restaurant, she's always making comments throughout the restaurant. So even though saying whatever you want, and if you're not going to follow that up with forcing yourself to be happy and content and joyous, then it's not whatever you want, because that quote, whatever you want, is conditional. The result is resentment and becoming a bystander in your own life rather than getting things out in the open, possibly getting what you want and having an exciting, loving partnership is really what the key is what the goal is. Don't get me wrong, there will be times when you're completely fine with whatever you want, and you are. However, I'm speaking primarily about the times that it's said simply to prevent an argument or avoid conflict. And many, many people do have this acquiescent state or response when we want to avoid conflict or any argument. And all that does is build up resentment with ourselves because we're not empowering ourselves. We're not being self-advocates. but then we start holding resentment towards the other person where we're continuously acquiescing and saying whatever you want. How do you figure out if you're conceding too much? There's no strict formula. It comes down to looking at two particular elements. One element is asking if it feels like you're losing something essential with each decision. If your thoughts are muddled, pay attention to your body language. You might think that you're fine with the outcome, but cringing, not breathing fully, or tensing up is a sign to the contrary. And maybe those are some of the things that you're regularly ignoring. So if you walk away from negotiating and compromising and you feel good, you feel safe, you feel valued, you're not compromising too much. But if you walk away feeling like, you did concede too much, and that's evidenced by heavy breathing, not happy, resentment, hostility, stomping your feet when you walk away, anything, and it could be things that we are aware of or not aware of, this will give us a good indication if we have negotiated and compromised too much. The other element is there's a discussion, always it's a positive indicator of teamwork. Are you feeling respected? It still might mean that you get, pennies on the dollar for whatever you're talking about, but it's easier to walk away with your head held high if you feel like not only you said what you had to say, but that was heard and respected. It doesn't have to be emulated. It doesn't have to be loved, and you don't have to do it. Nobody has to do it, but was it heard and was it respected? If those elements are rarely present, then yes, you are a conceder. The reason why and from which all others radiate could very well stem from low self-esteem. A lot of people aren't comfortable self-advocating because, whatever reason, maybe they were told when they were younger, you don't matter, your words are worthless, your thoughts, don't matter. So that could be, from a low self-esteem thing. Another thing could be you're just tired of constantly arguing. If every time your spouse asks you something and they don't really want to know your input, they just really want to talk you into doing what they want to do. Sometimes it's like, I just don't have the strength, the wherewithal, the interest, the energy. And then we acquiesce, and then that's where, hostility and resentment come in. You don't let people take care of you, you take care of them, because if you do, then they will, maybe your belief is if I do, they won't leave me, they'll love me more, they'll want me more, they'll like me more, what have you. You certainly don't ask for anything because that would inconvenience others enough to say, forget this person, or, this person's too difficult, or, what have you. If you believe the quote, I don't deserve someone going out of their way for me, to avoid conflict, making you most likely a horrible negotiator who caves too early or comes out too loud. And the reason is the same. You don't trust that anyone would value your side. And again, I always say, it doesn't matter if somebody emulates what you said, loves what you said, likes what you said. Are they listening to what you're saying, and are they valuing it? So many times, and you've heard this 1,000 times, so many times people listen to respond, not listen to understand. One of the things, and I've had to do this in my own marriage, is that when I'm talking, if I see my spouse already shaking, his head, or sorry, my thing went, or then that frustrates me because you're not listening to understand what I'm saying. You're listening to respond. And I need you to fully digest. And even if that means when I'm done talking, you take a second and think before you respond, fine. But I want to feel heard. I want to feel like I have a vote. I might not have the final say, and I'm fine with that, but I want to feel like I have a vote and that vote's respected. Realizing the issue is a good first step. You have to involve your partner. Obviously, this is a system problem. Your spouse may very well love and support you, but you guys have a routine. And if you're feeling unheard, the routine is one in which you don't speak up. If you independently decide to get together, no one is ready for this shift. And this shift is awfully jarring, because you have to get to know your who the person you're compromising with, negotiating with. You have to understand their own negotiating tools, and this can be difficult. It could be difficult with your spouse because we're always evolving. I always say we're human evolvements. more so than human beings. And then this could also be challenging with someone you just know, or a coworker or a boss, because you don't know how their negotiating tactics. So you want to be open to the discussion, like with most issues, by asking if your spouse or whomever has time to listen. And then follow that with, I statements. We always want to start with I statements. I've been struggling with something, which I've never mentioned. You need to take away any implication that your partner should have just known what was wrong. Listen, common sense lives in our mind. What's common to us is not common to others. So, we have to be very careful with the assumptions. So, ask your partner or ask whomever, do they have time? And then tell them what's bothering you, using I statements. It's also important to be specific when you talk, offering a reason why you overcompromise, which could be a variation on low self-worth, bad childhood. It also could be maybe in your current situation, you're beat down. Every time your boss asks you something and you're not comfortable, and it's something that you're not comfortable enough to compromise and negotiate on, but it's just, he or she does not want to hear anything. Eventually it's like, that old, I don't know if you ever heard the story of, if you put a rope on a baby elephant and you tie it to a big tree, and it spends days and weeks and months pulling their leg, that chain that is on the leg is just not going to give, and it's tied to a big tree. And eventually, eventually the elephant learns, no matter how much I pull this rope or this chain, it's not going to bust. When the elephant gets to an adult, you could easily change that chain to a thin rope and put it on a thin tree. And the second the large elephant now feels any resistance, it automatically gives up, because it's like, no, been there, done that. Even though in theory, it could rip that small, tree right out of the limbs. And basically this is us. Once we're conditioned to do something, we're just like, you know what, I don't have the energy. So just be careful what you're conditioned to. It's also important to be specific when you talk, offering a reason why you overcompromise. Sorry, I just read that. But you also want to narrow down the areas that are most important. So, and this goes with all compromise and negotiation, but we really do want to narrow down what exactly is it we want. And first of all, before we go to the negotiation table, we need to figure it out what exactly we want. Because we can't give each other's our expectations when we don't know our expectations ourselves. So in all this, a crucial sentence to speak is, I think it's making me resentful, and that doesn't do me or you any good. That's being honest, that's being raw, and that's saying, listen, I value our negotiation, I value our compromise, because I don't want to bring resentment into our relationship, whatever that dynamic is: boss, significant other, parent, child, neighbor, coworker, you have it. At some point, it's good to ask, is this a problem for you? You might think you know how behavior plays out, but your partner or whomever might see something different. So you want to make sure that, you invite them to the table as well. Is this something that you've noticed as well? Either way, you can get a buy-in, and the solution is now a partner effort, a collective effort. So both, instead of two people blaming each other for the issue, you are now two people working out an issue. Doing personal inventory is necessary, but this isn't all cognitive. Change only comes when you judge that what you want is bigger than what you fear. Until then, you'll continue to stay silent. So, while I say all the time in general, we always should come from a place of empowerment, not a place of fear. And, pick your battles. I mean, there's people in all of our lives that we know, no matter what we say, how we say it, when we present it, and in what perfect package we present it in, there's going to be some pushback and pullback. So, you do want to kind of, make sure you prioritize, is this something I really believe in? Then I'm going to go to the discussion table, the negotiation table, the compromise table. Regardless, pain is going to be involved, either the one you currently have by over accommodating, or what you'll feel by doing something unfamiliar. But that new discomfort is what matters. It's the catalyst for change. It's always say that, like, in order to be comfortable with, we must first deal with the discomfort. And I say this all the time. Especially when we're healing from infidelity, or when we're compromising, or when we're negotiating, or when we're doing anything that's something that we're not used to, it's a different pattern. We have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, a lot of times if I bring up something to my spouse, it doesn't matter if it's the way we communicate, the way, it doesn't matter. It's not comfortable saying, listen, sit down. I want to tell you something that bothers me. But here's the deal. If you don't allow yourself to get uncomfortable, there's no way you can live the rest of your life comfortable. So sometimes you got to say, okay, tell yourself, I'm going to bring this to the negotiation table. I want to compromise. This isn't comfortable for me, but you can either be uncomfortable initially so you can live comfortably, whatever, or you can just live in a constant state of discomfort and feel disrespected. And then what happens is hurt and hostility and resentment starts, and it starts with yourself. You really start to resent yourself for not voicing your thoughts and needs, and then that resentment goes to other people. Pain and the unknown don't sound simply, sorry, I have to get this. Pain and the unknown don't sound hugely appealing, but a true partnership only comes from speaking up and speaking your mind. I say that all the time. And in doing so, we need to be kind. I tell my kids this all the time. You can tell me anything you ever want to tell me, even if you're upset with me. You just got to tell me that respectfully. Just to bring this all to a close, I want you to remember, if you keep over accommodating, you will not feel alive in your relationship. Like Leonardo DiCaprio told Rose on the Titanic, if you stay in this situation, that beautiful light in your soul that I see through your eyes is going to dim. So if you do not voice your thoughts, feelings, and opinions in a relationship, you're going to wither up and die within that relationship. And I mean emotionally, not necessarily physically. And you not feeling alive does not do the relationship any good at all. And for as much as your spouse or whomever might have some resistance or pushback, eventually they will come to respect you if you do state your needs, your wants, and your willingness to come to the negotiation table and compromise.